A logical fallacy is something we all encounter in everyday life. This is when a person says something that appears to prove a point, but really it falls short. Sometimes they can be obviously wrong, and other times they can really fool you into believing that something isn't true. Never think that you should learn logical fallacies just so that you can prove everyone wrong. The main reason you should study logical fallacies is to make you a better listener when people try to fool you. Any irrational logic that you encounter in life falls into a category. We call these categories logical fallacies. By learning these fallacies, you can calmly listen as a person tries to trick you. As you are listening, you'll notice the fallacy they use is one you are already familiar with from your own study of them. This way you won't have to interrupt the other person just to tell him or her exactly what's wrong with what that person has just said. Instead, you can simply let them finish talking, all while you are fully familiar with what is wrong with what the person has said. This allows you to listen to other issues. You may agree with some of what the person says, or you may notice some emotional struggles in the other person. These are some of the benefits of being able to listen without needing to interrupt just for the sake of keeping things clear. A second benefit, though, of learning logical fallacies is that the type of fallacy a person chooses often tells you something about the motivation behind why the person is saying that. A special thank you goes to Michael Ramsden's Logic and Fallacies for all the videos in this series. Please download that lecture at bethinking.org. A false dilemma occurs when someone gives you two choices while hiding other choices and then asks you to choose. A simple example is, are you a communist or a fascist? Or, everyone who likes and shares my post is my friend, and if you keep scrolling, then you worship Satan. In reality, there are more options. Some people who like and share may not actually be your friend. Some people may keep scrolling and still like you and be your friend. Some people may hate you and also not believe in Satan. If you put the false dilemma in the form of a question, then it becomes a complex question. For example, does your mother know you are stupid? No matter how you answer that question, somehow you're stupid. If you're in such a situation in debate where it seems like no matter what you say it's going to be wrong, you're probably facing a false dilemma complex question. Here are some examples that I encountered in real life. It may help you to pause the video after I give you the example and try to think of the extra options that the person hid away. Here's the first one. I want to do an extra Bible study on top of the one that we already do. Everyone who really loves Jesus will come to it. Did you see the extra option? Maybe some people who love Jesus don't come to this particular Bible study. In fact, most people in planet Earth don't come to this Bible study. Does that mean that they all don't love Jesus? Here's another real-life example. You campers can't sing these worship songs because you are sinful. The first chapter of Isaiah says that God hates the worship rituals of sinners. Did you see the extra option? Maybe God can be worshipped by sinners. In this person's view, everyone is either sinful or not sinful. In reality, everyone's somewhere in between. We do some things wrong and some things right. So, how good do we have to be to sing the song? This example came in the middle of a discussion about whether people can be sinlessly perfect. And many complex questions come at you loaded from other discussions. But let's listen to this one. The discussion was about whether people can be sinlessly perfect or not. And this is what I said. I said that perfection means being exactly like God. God knows everything and has exactly the correct view on every situation at every time. We can't make every good choice and think every good thought that God does. Rather, we are always learning more and more about following God. There's always more to learn. When I was 12, I thought it was totally okay to lust after girls. Later, I read in the Bible that it was not. It was impossible for me to be perfect before I knew all that there was to know of righteousness. Nevertheless, even at age 12, there were some commands of righteousness that I already knew, like obey your mom and don't lie. So those I had the ability to choose to follow or disobey. Now, after I had explained all of that, this person responded by asking one very simple question. He said, "Are you saying that God forces us to sin?" Then he followed up by saying that if I did not answer right away, then I was avoiding the question. Take a minute and think about this question and what options it may hide. Did you see the hidden options? This question assumes that there's only one kind of sin. In reality, a lack of being as perfect as God is can be thought of as a sort of unintentional sin, because sin is when we simply lack some goodness. But this kind of sin is different from breaking a command that one knew he or she must follow. Now, sometimes the setup for a false dilemma comes from the views of the culture that you're in. So in Matthew 22, we read this, starting in verse 15. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. "Teacher," they said, "we know that you are a man of integrity, and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" Now, this is a false dilemma or a complex question from the culture, a culturally complex question. The people paying the taxes to the Romans are Jews. Jews are God's chosen people. But they are being oppressed and ruled tyrannically and cruelly by the Romans. To pay your taxes is to finance the cruel oppression of God's chosen people. How can you be holy and a true follower of God if you pay your taxes? But the penalty for paying your taxes is death. And the Jews have brought the government officials with them to ask this question. So if Jesus says, yes, pay your taxes, then he doesn't really follow God. No one will follow him anymore. He's not a true believer. But if Jesus says no, then he's not going to live past today. He'll be arrested on the spot. And the Pharisees sent their young students on this occasion so that the young students won't be asked the question themselves. Now, for another example of Jesus answering such questions, if you keep reading, you'll see where he answers it. But read the next interaction with the Pharisees. Now, finally, understand that false dilemmas always come from an intellectual place. This is a person who really thinks this form of faulty reasoning makes a lot of sense. In reality, it does not. What you want to do in this situation is simply introduce the missing option and show the dilemma to be false.